Skull, welcome everybody to the DragonShip, a place where a rising tide lifts all boats. And we're the rising tide. Welcome this Saturday. I'm RP Thor, your host of the DragonShip. I'm going to bring up my panel today. We're going to talk about something that should mean something to everybody that's watching this broadcast because everybody needs this. What is it we're talking about today? We're talking about frame in your relationships. We talked about frame last week. Frame last week was really exciting. If you missed that show, come back and take a look. That was a pretty fantastic show, really. I was really impressed with what the guys came up with. And we started to talk about it. We realized we need more discussions around frame because it's often missed what frame is and how it holds the monies, the muscles, and the game all together with your identity and your personality. And it sets forth how you conduct yourself within relationships. You want success in relationships? Frame is absolutely required. You want to be a good father? Frame is absolutely required. You want your women that are in relationships with you, your wives, to be the girl of your dreams? Well, then frame is 100% required. We're going to get in today, and it's going to be really interesting. So, frame in your relationships. That'll be the topic for today, and I'm going to bring up the panel, and it's going to be really, really exciting. Let's go ahead and get there without further ado and bring them up. And bring everybody in that's here today. You guys will recognize all these guys. These guys are wonderful, and I will start to introduce them, and we will start doing roundtable. You guys know me. I'm the original Thor, born 1 year before the comic book Thor, so I have the right to say it. This is Thor, RP Thor. Guys, welcome Huds. Huds is our resident dating coach extraordinaire. He's also producer of the show. Welcome, Huds. Appreciate you coming in here today. We have Wraith Deantor, who has premiered last week his YouTube channel, Wraith Deantor, and we are broadcasting live to both Huds and Wraith Deantor. And then we have the illustrious Phil Foster from Phil Foster's Fitness. Looks like I got a banner over your head right now. Well, let's get that out of there. Sorry about that. Of course, you know, it's a good-looking guy up there.
It is. It's all good, brother.
Phil Foster, welcome. And we have a special guest today. And we're going to see more of him in the future. And that's Jimmy, the Texas Chad. Welcome, Jimmy. Appreciate you coming on board today for this important discussion on frame and relationships. Every man here has a ton of experience with this, good, the bad, and the ugly. I can tell you we've all made our fair share of mistakes. For those of you listening, you know, there's a lot to be learned from here. And sometimes you just got to do it on your own, make your own mistakes. Oh, shoot. Did we just lose Glenn Lawrence? He's got a tough connection. That's okay. We have a good connection all the way from Tokyo, Japan, which I think in Tokyo, Japan, it's a little early in the morning. Shall I say 2:30, 3 o'clock? And that's Laurel from Tokyo. He is an author of a very successful book, which is a logarithmic trading in Python. And he is a family man and a business owner there in Tokyo. He has a lot of skills in which he can impart a lot of knowledge on frame, many business partners, many different businesses, worked in corporate America, run his own business. He's got 2 beautiful children, and he'll give us a lot of experience there. And then finally, we have Mark Daniels from Mark's Inspiration. We are broadcasting live to his channel as well, Mark's Inspiration YouTube. Guys, please go and subscribe to these guys. Welcome, Mark. You've been an international traveler, lived internationally. I mean, I'm sure that you have a lot to add to this today. And I'm going to go ahead and add, looks like we might have Glenn back on the stream, maybe. We are broadcasting to Lawrence too.
I was hitting that too.
We're broadcasting to Glenn Lawrence YouTube as well today. Welcome, Glenn. Can you hear us? Are you available to talk, or are you having?
I am. I'm here, you guys. I'm here. I'm just doing a little bit of traveling right now, so I will be in and out as I can.
All right.
I'm busy.
Glenn is an actor, a producer, and a director. And he's quite red-pilled. He's kind of living in a bubble there in Hollywood. And we definitely support Glenn in his upcoming movie, Mind Dates. It should be pretty darn interesting. If you're not aware, he is in the process of putting together a really good red pill based movie, and he is getting it in production now. So we should see that start to shoot probably early next year, right?
That is the plan, and it's funny that we're talking about Frame because the whole movie about Mind Dates is exactly entirely about Frame.
It's fantastic, fantastic, guys. And then one final thing, guys, do me a solid if you're watching this for the first time. I want you to go over there and subscribe to Tate Speech on Rumble and RP Thor on Rumble. I don't know if any of you guys are on Rumble, Huds, Wraith, Phil, Glenn, if you're, or Mark, if you guys are on Rumble, go and subscribe. It's a really nice platform that is uncensored. You have to reach a certain level of viewers before you can stream live. I'm only a few shy from subscribers there, and we'll be able to simultaneously broadcast on Rumble. That would be pretty exciting as well. So go and do that. And then, of course, free the top G as well. So today, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Huds. Huds, you found an interesting article that's brand new news that has a lot to do with frame and how nobody is immune to lack of frame. When we say frame, anybody can drop frame. In fact, frame is kind of a fluid thing. You got to cup it, form it, hold it, nurture it, maintain it. It's part of, at least for us men, it's part of our masculine burden of performance. And nobody is immune. We can talk many, many examples about frame in business, but today we're talking about relationships. A lot of examples we can use. Bill Gates. We can use, the Amazon founder. A lot of guys have frame that are well off in life and have excellent frame in business, but very touchy when it comes to personal relationships. So I think that's what Huds is going to take us through today, and we'll all have commentary. Thank you guys for all joining us. Does anybody have anything they want to add to the monologue? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Huds, and let's get it going, buddy.
Absolutely. One thing that just popped into my mind as we were talking there is you can think of frame almost like your armor, and you can think of ship tests, as we talk about in relationships, of your girl testing you as trying to chip away at that armor. And then the more times that happens, the more times that you let it go, then it gets to the point where your armor falls off and the relationship is over. So it's an interesting metaphor, just thinking about it. Now we can go ahead. Thor, do you want to add Andre to the stream?
Okay. Do we have? We need a tardy jar, don't we? I think we should have a tardy jar. I think it's $10. Andre, it's $10 in a tardy jar. We'll put that towards improving the studio quality and the quality of our stream. How about that, huh? Just kidding.
Excellent. I love it.
Okay, great. You missed the introduction, but I'm going to toss it back to Huds. And, Andre is an NLP practitioner extraordinaire. He's also familiar with hypnosis and coaching men. He has many years of experience, and he has decided to jump on board with the panel here and add some of his wisdom from many years of his consultations. And we appreciate it, Andre. Thank you.
Awesome. So I think almost everybody knows who Tom Brady is, but for those maybe internationally or don't follow football at all, he's kind of revered as the GOAT, the greatest of all time in football. I don't even know how many it is right now, 6 or 7 Super Bowls. He's a quarterback, and just for years, he has dominated. Now he's, I believe, like 44. 43 or 44, and he retired. It finally happened. He's like, all right, we're done. We can't do this anymore. I mean, he's getting old.
He hit the wall.
Yeah, risk of injury is very high when he's on the field, and he was retiring. I believe, didn't they win the Super Bowl last year? Isn't that what he did? I don't even remember. I don't follow football, but he ended on a high note, and then he just suddenly the itch came and he wanted to go back to football. And now his wife here, Giselle, not too happy about that. Now, essentially, in this story here, when he decided to unretire, he even had taken 11 days off of the preseason training due to personal reasons. I'm sure we know what those personal reasons are. The bitching, nagging, and fighting that was probably going on at their house. And then what she ended up doing is she was so frustrated with him that she took the kids and flew off to Costa Rica. Now, I don't know if that's listed. It's got to be listed here somewhere. Yeah. So she left their home and went to Costa Rica. And so he's left after having already taken this time off from preseason training. Now he's left by himself to think about his actions. And I find it very interesting when we were talking a little bit about this prior to, is that even though he is he is high status celebrity, and it's like, why would you ever leave somebody like that? It's interesting. She actually and this is something that Glenn reminded me of, her net worth is actually higher. So even by being the best quarterback, arguably of all time, she still is the breadwinner in the relationship. So it's essentially she holds the frame here.
Yep. Very unfortunate for that family. And then can I offer a caveat though? You know, I understand where this comes from, and people, like this, it's very exciting to talk about. So we know there's three sides to every story here. And we're going to make that assumption here. There's hers, his, and then there's the truth in between. But there's things we can assume here as far as frame that fit the red pill. Really interesting. She is essentially has a higher income than him. She has quite a good status. Now, he has a very top status. I think she'd be really hard pressed to find anybody with more status than him. And that's probably held it together for as long as they've been married. How long were they married, Hud? Or are they?
Oh, that's a good question.
They have children too, right?
Yeah, they have children. And what's also interesting? She used to date Leo DiCaprio as well.
A top echelon. I mean, this anybody looking from the outside, this is their goal. They don't know they can't do this. Yeah, interesting.
So they've been together for 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane. 13 years, and she's thrown it away because she's frustrated that he wants to go back and play more football. Like, let the man do what he loves, And that's one thing when it comes to frame. When you want to do something, and your wife or partner is nagging you on it, well, if you firmly believe and you firmly want to do that, well, stand by your boundaries.
Yes, and that would be holding frame. Now, interestingly enough, did he comment on this at all?
Who, Tom?
Yeah.
He did have a couple different things that he had said. This is just one thing from an awkward press conference. It's all personal. Everyone's got different situations they're dealing with. We all have really unique challenges to our life. I'm 45 years old, man. There's a lot of shit going on.
That's interesting. I'm going to make some assumptions here, guys. We're just bullshitting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to get your guys' intake on this. I've been around long enough that I've had mentors that are still working late into their 60s. And we ask them because they struggle with it sometimes. And man, they're destroying their bodies. They're doing the whole thing. Because, in my industry, it's very physical and dangerous too. If you don't know, my industry is power line work. Guys that climb the poles, fix the towers, provide electricity. And at least a couple of them, in my experience, they didn't want to retire for the strict purpose of they didn't want to be home with their wife. Imagine a frame where if you were home and you'd worked all these years, and yet the person that you're spending your time with is enough of a problem that you will put your life back at risk. And of course, there's quite a brotherhood and camaraderie at risk that you give up. And that is a severe blow to a man, is that brotherhood. And that's why I tell guys, when you start to change careers or you leave and retire, there is no retirement. You have to carry your brotherhood on with you. You know, it's very important that men have male friends. And it's funny because I've known so many men that get excluded because their wives don't want them to have close male friends. I have noticed this quite a bit, and it becomes much more difficult. You don't need to spend more time with that guy or this group. And yet that is what keeps him holding frame. He learns from that group. Now, we're not talking about going and drinking with the boys every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but other more constructive things. I mean, you know, having your barbecues with your boys, maybe doing a fishing trip, you know, deep sea. You've had all of you guys have done this sort of thing. So there's that, right? And I'm just wondering if how much time they actually spent together, and then he retires as like, I'm going back to play football. Because you know, football, dude, talk about endorphins. You know there's an endorphin rush going on. Just the sheer excitement. I know guys that will work days on end in a heat storm like we have now because the excitement of being a first responder. Somebody's out of power. We could save somebody's life getting the power back up. You know, street lights are out. Someone's going to crash. We got to get it up. And it's just such an endorphin rush, you know, and it draws.
Imagine that, what you're saying and just thinking about it. Imagine wanting to put your life on the line, get your ass handed to, get tackled, is more enjoyable than having to stay home with your wife.
Oh, and it's Giselle. Look at her. She's still a hot piece at her age.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's wild.
I
Although in
think
my
you're onto
experience,
something,
a
Thor.
lot of those that were that hot aren't really that good in bed. Anyway, what was that chat text? Jimmy.
I think you're onto something. I think from my point of view, they spend very little time together. She works a lot. And even in the off season, he works a lot, whether it's product endorsement deals, they're training every day. I mean, there's not a day that goes by that they don't train. And so I think they got a taste of what it's like being together for more than 3 or 4 days at a time in any serious capacity. And man, it's not good. You have to imagine it's almost like meeting a girlfriend that lives in another city and spending a week at a time in a unbelievable resort or a home they own or something like that. It's not really real, you know. It's kind of like the girl that tells you, "Oh, I have a boyfriend that lives in another city," and you're like, you know, they live that life 3 days at a time, 4 days at a time.
You know, it's interesting. I'll get into this later, but one of the things, you know, you can't be with somebody 24/7 either when you retire. This is a thing I talked about, you know, a father's frame before, and where it's been broadcast to many, many, many men today that in order to be a good father, you have to be there 100% of the time, all the time. You have to be there and essentially become a second mother. Look anywhere, look at the advertisements out there. It's an emotional this and that, or you're not a good father. You better not miss a single basketball game or the this or the that. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't see your children. You should, but it's not as impactful. A father is different. Father has impact when he has quality with his children. For centuries upon centuries of millennia, we would go out and hunt. We'd be gone for weeks. We'd have impact when we came home. There was a bit of mystery, which is frame, to not only the mother, but to the children too. And we would impart our knowledge in impactful events, you know. And I think that's really important that we just continue to do those things today. We have to be men on our mission. Why would you do that? The frame for a man is loyalty, sacrifice, security, protection. In order to do that, you're going to have to get out there and you're going to be away from your family and your loved ones in order to provide that. You're going to create that environment for which they want to be in there with you. When I was young, our fathers were superheroes. That was their frame. My dad can beat up your dad, Phil, you know, stuff like that, right? But we need to be superheroes. Phil is a superhero, but we need to be superheroes to our wives and our children. Why? Because we need to be an example for our boys when they enter manhood. And we have to be an example for our girls to find a mate or a husband or an LTR. So that's part of frame as well. But I just kind of wanted to bring that up. There's a whole lot of stuff that's broadcast to young men today, essentially to be a second mother, not a father as I'm used to. My father went for weeks. He came home. It was great. We'd build tree forts together. He'd say, Thor, don't step on that nail behind you. What do you think I'd do? I'd step on the goddamn nail. And then he'd pick me up and say, I told you not to step on the nail, but it's okay, son. You'll be all right. Yeah, stuff like that. That's Frame. It was very masculine. And we followed that guy. It was good family leadership, but he also had leadership in his own life. I'm wondering how much of that is there with Tom Brady, Huds. What do you think? I mean, did you follow Tom Brady? Anybody here a football fan? I mean, I'm just kind of.
I'm not a football fan, but I've got a comment.
Yeah, please, Ray.
I think a lot of the problem that we're not seeing is the fact that he didn't have a plan for after football.
True.
Okay. He did. And, you know, when you're sitting there, and I remember when I retired from the military, you know, I went to work the next day. And then, my wife at the time, she said, well, you know, maybe you don't need to work. So I quit working. 6 weeks later, she goes, yeah, you need to find a job. You know, because there's just, if you don't have a job, you're not a man and you don't have something that you're working towards, you don't have any focus. So you're really all over the place. I mean, there's only so many times I can clean the garage, throw shit away, go buy new shit to throw away, you know, and that was kind of the cycle for that 6 to 8 weeks. So I went back out and found another job, you know.
Wraith, I tell guys, I don't want to be at the bar when it opens at noon. That's
Right.
the thing. You know what I'm saying? That's what's going to happen. So I got to have something going on.
So, I mean, he could have all the frame in the world, but if he doesn't have any focus for anything else, no plans for how she's going to start losing attraction for him, because her life didn't change. Okay. Her life still has all the same business commitments and everything that she had while they were married.
Mm.
His life was the one that changed, and he didn't have enough forethought to understand, when my life changes, I have to fill that gap with something else. And that's when all these, you know, as they're sitting there and she's trying to, and I don't call them shit tests because I don't know her, but these value evaluations is what it really is. What is your value to me now? And as he's going through that, he can't identify that to her, because the only thing he knows is football.
Yeah.
And that's what he's known for. You know, so what is he going to be known for from this point on?
And that would be a reason why he's considered the greatest of all time in many ways, that type of focus. So I would be surprised if he had a plan considering that level of focus.
Well, he probably doesn't. Most of them don't. I mean, and you look at those that play well into their 40s. I mean, they're broken down 50-year-olds for the most part.
Yeah. Don't a lot of them end up broke too, even though they had a lot of money? And
Right.
Yeah.
So he's trading, you know, he's trading that fame after retiring. He's trading that fame for being a dad and a husband. And first off, he doesn't have any skill set to do that because he hasn't been around. And the second thing is, you know, that's not where he finds value in himself. And he's got to start looking at, where do I pull value from for myself as he goes into the next time he retires, if he does. But like I said, it's just too many of them crash and burn. Too many people, famous people, crash and burn when their abilities are gone.
I think for Tom, can you guys hear me? I think for Tom, honestly, it's a business thing for him. Now, you have to understand, he's probably been one of the least injured quarterbacks that have played for 20 plus seasons. And he created this thing called T12. It's a football combine workout and a rehab center that I watch a lot of football, so trust me, I know. That actually conflicted with the New England Patriots and the coaching staff, which led to him leaving New England, going to Tampa. And he actually established it in New England, but once he moved, he had to reestablish it in Tampa Bay. And I think for him, it's a business thing. I think a lot of it is he doesn't know what he is outside of football. and he's trying to establish his business to the point where he could still be part of football but not part of football at the same time. And I think for him, it's just that he doesn't have an identity outside of football, and his wife does. So now it's like, what is he? Who does he become after he takes the pads off? He becomes the house husband, and he doesn't want that. He wants to find another way to be somebody of importance as he is now outside of the football game. And I think that's where he struggles, is that he doesn't have that identity of himself of what he is going to be outside of it. So he's going to play until he's damn near 50 years old, if you let him.
Oh, you're dead on, I think. And she actually needs him to be that, I think. But I would think she needs that at her core. So right now she's got the pants. So
Well, she wants him to lead. I
Thor,
think she wants him to lead. I think she was fine with him playing football and being that leader, even though she was still making more money than him by her investments. It was still him leading. He was leading something. And now that if he retires, he's not leading, but she still wants him to lead, but she just wants him to lead from a different, position in life.
yeah, we'll see. Andre,
if
you
I
want
can
to
add
add?
on to that, yeah, I predicted this the minute he left the Patriots and ended up in Tampa Bay. In my
Predicted what?
mind, he lost frame when even though he was well. What's in Tampa Bay besides the football team?
I don't know.
Nothing. It's just tourism. It's just tourism. He would have been better off in L.A. because she wouldn't be doing this if he was the quarterback of L.A. There's nothing there. It's the frame outside of football, because in New England, the capital of New England, yes, I know there's 5 states, but in Massachusetts, what? Boston. That's have you ever been to Boston? It's nothing but nightlife, the density of colleges, intellectual elite, blah, blah, blah. It's a spotlight. There's nothing in Tampa Bay except for shopping and beaches. It's relaxation. He should have, if she would be married to him still, because he'd be the king of LA. He'd be bigger than LeBron, because LeBron doesn't have a wife, or whatever, if he does or whatever. She would be the queen of LA. He lost complete frame before he even won the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay. Just that's part of my thing. So the minute that he left, she was like, I'm done.
Yeah, with her, he does, because if he had it, she'd still be on board.
That is such an interesting point, Andre. I didn't even think about that, because okay, he's getting towards the end of his career. He doesn't need to, he doesn't need the biggest deal. Like, the money is not the issue. It's, where do I want to go play where it's going to be the most fun to live for not just me, but my whole family. And that status of, if he went to LA, that's brilliant. I'm sure he didn't think about that at all.
There's not
We
even
had a tough time finding a post Jim Mora. We had a real tough time with the Saints finding an NFL coach that wanted to live in New Orleans. In fact, it was Mike Ditka that made the comment to the owner of the New Orleans Saints, Tom Benson, at the time. There's no place for men to shop for clothing. And he's really actually not wrong about that. There's not even a Nordstrom in New Orleans. So, his wife didn't want to move down there, and Benson had to give her one of the first new little CLK compressors in a red color that came into the United States. He had to sweeten the deal. She didn't want to live down there.
So, Andre, you think there's a social component that he didn't account for in his frame? I'm going to say, I would think that that's a factor, but I think that if he had his frame solid, he would override that. He would override that because she'd want to be with him wherever he's at.
Right. And the first thing if he retired, he should have gone to LA or New York, because that's where the media capitals are. And because it would post, because they're waiting. The Amazon's gonna, how Amazon just picked up Troy Aikman and the other guy, I can't think of his name, for Thursday Night Football, I think it is, or Monday night. What is it, Wraith or Glenn? But they're waiting. Everybody's chomping on the bet for him to do his TV training, and because he's the most as Glenn said, he's the most he's the highest underpaid athlete in history, and what he's contributed to sports. And there's still a lot of money. He has a career the rest of his life. he'll make at least $1 million every 3 days to $2 million every 7 days, whatever it is, the rest of his life for what he's done. But you are right. His frame, he should, to me, he didn't think about her but also himself. But there's nothing for her to do in frickin' Tampa Bay. And then also for the kids, it's not the best schools. They're in Orlando or in what's on the flip side, South Beach or whatever. That's still hours drive or whatever. It's not in the frame. He should have gone to LA or New York right after his retirement. He should I'm going to get trained in TV. And then she would be like, yay, that's what I want. Oh, me. Yeah.
So I'm going to jump this around because that's an interesting point, but I'm going to sit here and say there could be a whole lot more involved in this. There could be some monkey branching going on here because he's so focused. And now that he's home, he's got too much time on his hands, and that's interfering with that aspect of the slide out. Her exploring or healing herself, all of that sort of crap, always, especially at year 13 and 14. We talked about this before. That is statistically a possibility, and it's likely because us human beings do that on a whole. Now, that being said, the man may actually be doing something to recover his frame, and that would be by going back to work and dominating in his industry, whether it's on the field or off the field. I think he can do it off the field from right where he's at in Tampa. He's not going to kowtow to her needs because really, if he's the leader of his family, she will do what she needs to do. Just because a woman wants to be social or in that environment, if she's providing the value for you to do that, then provide it. If she's not, then I wouldn't do it. She's following me on my mission. I think that's what really holds the relationship together. I'm going to go so far as say my mission is the mission, and she's on my mission, and it's become her mission. So I would not do that. But if he's going back to work, he could reestablish frame there. Why? Because he will be extremely desirable. He's the greatest of all time. Yeah, go to Costa Rica. There's going to be a lot of younger Giselles out there interested in him, and he will do more to correct his frame by doing that and keeping his mouth shut than anything else. And I'm making some assumptions, of course, but there could be a lot more to that. And I think that decision to go back to work and do that rather than be at home house husband, I would suspect that him doing that would have destroyed some of his attractiveness that she found in him anyway, just knowing the very little that I know about her, but knowing a lot about other human beings and how they behave as they start to age and have time in relationships. Guys, let's open it up to that.
It really, did he lose?
That brings up the question, though. That brings up the question. Now, is his frame becoming unattractive to her, and that's why you're seeing this? Because I always.
Oh, we lost you, Glenn.
That
We'll
your
get you
woman
back.
decides to abandon
Glenn,
frame
you're choppy.
for your frame.
Yeah, like I said, did he really lose frame? I mean, what do we tell young men? If you're maintaining frame and a woman doesn't want to do the things that you are saying, this is what my life is going to be, that's you holding frame. And if she leaves, that's the loss, the expectation of loss that we tell them. Expect to lose her. So did he really lose frame? I don't know. But I think, from a standpoint, I think he has to think about his future, and he has to figure out, what he wants and what he wants from this point on. And, say he goes back and he plays for a couple more years and they stay together. This is going to come up again if he doesn't do something about it now. So like I said, did he lose frame? I don't know. I don't think so. I think if he's sitting there saying, I'm going to go play football, whether you like it or not, he's maintaining that frame.
Exactly. That's where I wanted to go with it. Yeah.
Now, if she's pushing back saying, I don't want this, then that's the choice, that she has to make. Does she continue down the pathway that they've been, and with the expectation that he's going to be the man he needs to be and he's going to do the things he needs to do? Or does she go off and, take the kids, run, hide somewhere else and do something else? But like I said, I don't think he's lost frame. I think he wasn't prepared for retirement. That's something he needs to work on. But him looking back and going to her and saying, I'm going to play football, is him maintaining his frame because that's what he wants to do. Whether it's for financial reasons or business reasons or anything, he's making a choice to choose football as a way to stay in frame and be involved in his life. So
It's a good observation. I mean, I kind of twist it that way myself, missing information here. Lauren, I saw you. I want to give you a shot on this from Tokyo. You have experience in relationships, and I mean, dare I say, a few of us are approaching that retirement age, the sports heroes that we are. Laurent, you're up.
I mean, it's the same everywhere. Like, for instance, you were talking about people who retire. I've seen many guys who've spent their entire lives climbing up the ladder, only to know to find the day after they retire that it was leaning on the wrong wall. And there's only so many barbecues you can do. And I just finished this book called The Passion Trap. So it's really interesting. It's a very nice segue. It's a segue into No More Mr. Nice Guy. It's basically the dominant frame takes it all. Like, there's always a one up and a one down in every relationship. In the case of Tom Brady or in the case of Sylvester Stallone, they were the one up, and then there's a change in the dynamics, so they're a bit unsettled, and all of a sudden the dynamic changes and they one down, and then the woman starts to look down upon them. So it's really about looking at this from a frame perspective. Who has the dominant frame? It doesn't mean domineering, but it means dominant. And how to reclaim the frame is very important, because if you think about it, he's got the money, he's got the looks, he's got the status, he's got everything you want, and all this holds together only because you have frame. And also, if you think about it, she divorces him, she takes the house, she takes the kids, she takes the money. What is the glue that's going to hold it together? Is frame. This is the only thing that holds it together. And I've seen many guys who have a professional frame, and when there's a change, a subtle change, they get passed up for a promotion or they lose their job. 6 months down the road, the wife divorces them. So that was my two things. So The Passion Trap is a fascinating book to read in terms of frame. Who has the dominant frame and how to reclaim the frame once you've lost it.
So let's talk about reclaiming frame. I mean, that's one of the problems I think the red pill actually has when you have guys that are in long-term relationships that have kind of fallen into blue pill thinking. Give the little lady whatever she wants, happy wife, happy life, instead of what we all believe, which is choose a good wife, have a great life. Different scenario, but you do that, and it's easy to do. You got your steady supply, you're going to do it, you want to make her happy, you're in there, but then things naturally start to shift because of female nature. I'm not slamming women, I'm glad they do, but at that 7-14 right there around 21, there's this shift. Things start to soften, find new genetics, repopulate the earth, the whole thing. There's a monkey branch, whatever these stresses are, socially, loss of attraction. And the guy says, I want to reclaim frame. I see a lot of guys in our space, and I could be wrong, but at least guys that have come to me, so I may be biased. And it's like, okay, I'm going to reclaim frame. Right now, I'm writing down, you know what? No more Mr. Nice Guy. Fuck you, bitch. Fuck me, or I'm fucking another one. And it's that from day one. And I caution guys that that's not how you reclaim frame. As much as you want to be the top G and do that right now, it is a gradual thing that's almost invisible. Yes, will you have these confrontations? Well, you're going to have to deal with some of these when you reestablish frame. You're going to have to conquer things. But using finesse and time to your advantage. Has anybody had a conversation with a significant other? And part of your frame is that it's not going to be taken well to begin with. I have an example, and I'm going to use it as very benign. I have a wife, and this wife doesn't like change that much. She's smart, but she likes things the way they are. If I was blue pill too long, that's the way she would love it. If I'm red pill, that's the way she likes it, And she, for years, she didn't want a cell phone. And then I bought her a cell phone, and she complained that I bought her a cell phone that she didn't need, didn't want, and wouldn't use. What do you think happened after a few months? Yeah, she liked it, loved it. It was great. And then she graduated to a flip phone. That was fantastic. What do you think she did when I bought her a smartphone? I don't like it. It's hard to use. I will never use it. You wasted all of your money. Shame on you for buying me this iPhone. I don't like it. It's too much. What do you think she says about that today? This is a benign example, but it's a beautiful example on how you would move the frame. Now, I held off for a while and I said, this would be really nice if you'd like it. There's these advantages. Oh, that sounds nice, but I just don't really need it. Oh, okay. And then I would look for examples where she did need it for a map or something. I said, man, if you had a smartphone, it'd be pretty nice. She goes, yeah, I suppose, but I really don't want one. But this is sitting on her. And there's a beautiful example of how this frame is done right now today that's fresh in everybody's mind. Did anybody here, I'm sure you watch Rollo Tomasi. If you watched him, a month or two ago, he was on with Jedediah Bila. I hope you guys have seen that. Huds, I know you have. And
I haven't.
Guys, we're going to have to clip this up and do it on a different channel, but you'll watch when you're changing someone's frame, you're holding your frame, you're projecting your ideas, and you're doing it with some finesse and some rationale. Sometimes the emotional reaction is too much. So he was on with Jedediah Bila, and it was quite combative. She overtalked him, and everything he would say about Red Pill was, yeah, but not me, not everybody, no way. But, it was all of that sort of thing we've talked about before, the way modern people communicate, or modern women communicate, men. And then give it a month or two as she sat and thought about it, and the rational mind started to raise itself, and she could see different pieces of it. Go watch the interview you did with her 1 week ago. It's a 180-degree difference. There is an acceptance of some of the raw truths, which allowed them to communicate in a fashion that was incredible. And at first, you could see Rollo was struggling keeping that frame, but he did really well. She was just going to fight him the whole time. And then the second time you watch the interview, it meshes so beautifully inside of Rollo's frame. I think if you're watching and you pay attention, that's a great example of it. So I think a lot of times us in the Red Pill say, you got to change your frame, and it's right now, and it's exciting to just say, fuck that bitch, we're doing this now. Probably the wrong thing to do. If you haven't done it, you got to ease into this and get knowledge and experience and then go.
But I think you're talking about the extremes that we deal with.
Yes.
And that's what not a lot of guys understand, or not a lot of people interpret. We have guys that come to us that are suicidal. And you do aggressive things with people that are aggressively wanting to harm themselves. And you have to be aggressive in approaches. And that may be something that you need to do with that person that's in that state of mind. They have to start finding immediate value in themselves, because they've devalued themselves, or they've allowed other people to devalue them to the point where they don't think life's worth living. So you may take that approach with someone that's in that situation. Now, someone that's been married for 20 years and he's just not happy with the way things are going in his marriage because he doesn't think she values him. You can be a little more subtle, and you can, teach him through a process of how to gain frame back. All right. It may be immediate to him, but he has to be able to solicit the values and stuff that she has and start changing those values. And that's a more delicate attempt at trying to change someone else's values. But when you start talking about someone that's, on the ropes, you have to be aggressive. And I know Andre knows this. You have to be aggressive with how you move those people to go from no internal value to they have internal value. And that's not even a struggle. It's not an overnight struggle there. It's like 2 or 3 sessions you're getting through there. The first thing is keep them off the ropes first. And then you start moving them to the center of the circle. Okay, and then when you get them into the center of the circle, you can start showing them all those fences around them in the octagon or the circle. Those are there to protect him, and to keep everything in control. That's where you start building the frame, whether it's a square ring or round circle or an octagon.
Well, that's fantastic. What a great time. How about bringing up Wraith's definition and covering that for us, Huds, as part of the show now, so it brings us back on to what frame is.
Sure. Yeah, I can pull it up. I don't have the original definition because I didn't save what I had from before. However, give me 1 second here. However, I do have the original
Nice.
original slides. So if you want to, Wraith, just to speak on frame, why it's so important. I know this is something that you focus on with people a lot.
Well, I think, what I first off is that we just define frame. Frame is a psychological context and subcontext that you live in. Okay. In all the NLP guys, psychology guys, hypnosis guys can talk to you about presuppositional phrasing, how presuppositional phrasing or presuppositions develop your values and your beliefs. Beliefs are actually the core things that you pull from presuppositional phrases. And if you find those things that you really believe in, those become values like integrity, honor, those kind of things. Those are really hardcore beliefs that you need to live by. And like I said, that's kind of what it is. It's just, but it's more in the sense that you have to understand that you're always going to have some kind of frame. All right. And it's whether or not you have a frame that you want. And that defines how you treat other people and how other people treat you. You set those boundaries and those rules around what's acceptable behavior from you and what acceptable behavior you'll take from other people. That's pretty much the basis of frame. And I think a lot of guys, we work on, I know Andre does, I do. I know a couple of the other guys that do hypnosis and other coaching. They work on your values because we want to establish values that, you can project for yourself and values that make you feel good about yourself. And if you have values that you're constantly struggling with, those probably aren't values that you need. But your values should stand for something, and they should make you feel in a positive way about you. So that's what frame is. I think if you go to the second slide, there was a couple things on there.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, one thing I want to say, and what I was writing down, like frame and boundaries are so interconnected and so important. And what I find is when people are lacking frame, it's because they're also lacking boundaries. And so when they start to have those boundaries, understand themselves, and then start living as themselves, then they start to have a stronger frame. I mean, obviously it doesn't fix it all. That's only a piece of it, but it's at least a great starting point.
Right. Well, I think, the reason that happens is because they start believing in themselves. And that's the main thing. And it's done by developing little competencies that give you confidence, and those little competencies are what most coaches, most mentors and stuff work on. How do you, add value to yourself by just those little competencies? And, like I said, the first paragraph on that is frames a genuine look at you, your values, your boundaries, as well as the physical and social expression of those. Frame does not belong to the red pill. It's an expression of your beliefs and how you construct the life you want. That is what frame is, guys, in simple terms.
Excellent. Do you want to go to the second slide or you want me to pull that?
No, we're good. I think
right.
we covered everything.
Good. Phil, you wanted to jump in here?
Hey, what's going on? Yeah, I was just playing devil's advocate a little bit there too, in the private chat between us. I was just saying, what about women that refuse the subtle influences, right? That they were discussing earlier in the stream, like a couple of minutes ago, being subtle and just implementing your strategies quietly. And, I continue on. I said, I've seen good women that have been programmed by feminism, that girl power, and they refuse. They deep down inside know that you should be the man. She should fall into your frame and he should lead. If he's ticking all the boxes and she refuses that, subtle, that the harshness might come out inside of that man as well. You see what I mean? That directness, that hardness, because here's the thing, when it comes
out. Absolutely, Bill. This is part of what happens is you're going to get challenged when you change frame. You will, particularly by the women. Think of it this way, guys. Guys, as soon as she starts to sense a change in the frame that's a little bit uncomfortable, which it will be, you have an ultimatum yet. You're just changing things, setting it, and you're moving it in the needle in the right direction. She will run to her girlfriends and spill her guts out what a DB you are, because it used to go this way and now you're changing it.
Yeah, you're changing the game, right? But what you're
Uh-huh.
really doing is you're actually assuming control and taking the seat at the head of the table where you belong.
Yeah.
I think a lot of women, though, are so programmed for that girl power stuff. Well, it's kind of like, circling back on this topic of, Brady and his girl. I mean, she's a woman of serious influence and power. So that dynamic is probably up and down all the time. I would almost go as far as to say is that he's almost like a switch in some instances, Thor, because the simple fact is who she is and the security she has developed for herself and her popularity and whatnot. Yeah, I think that women in general, they can be taught, and especially if you have a really good woman. If you have a good woman and she's teachable, but she also has that outside programming or that programming from her past before you came along in her life. And you discover that, okay, no matter what implemented strategies I apply, whether it's hypnosis, no offense, Andre, or anything like that, or any of these other little strategies, I think, at what point do you cut bait and run? Okay, so say you're in a relationship with someone for 10, 15 years, and things are going along. She tests your frame, but you're still implementing the same strategies and you're still holding her true to your frame. And she constantly is testing that.
Yep.
Where's the weakness at in your frame then? Right?
Okay.
Why is she constantly probing that? Why? And I would say that it's more or less that feminist or feminism that has programmed these women to thinking that they don't need a man.
Oh, I'm glad you bring it up. I actually have a whole list of these. They're called added liabilities and added values.
Let's go. Let's hear it.
One of the issues that you run into, you can go back and watch the channel where I talk about principles of long-term relationships. But, when you have the frame and you set your own frame, that's you. That's your identity. That's how you operate. You want to change something. When I say that you need to just not immediately start with ultimatums, ultimately the frame is moving in this direction. Get on board. I'll give you several places to jump on the train comfortably, but the train's going to move faster and faster where you can't grab onto the handle anymore and get on board. That's kind of the direction, if you, as a man, you need to go to rein this back in. Part of it, though, there's a lot of variabilities. If she has added liabilities, such as in her group of friends, she is the one that's influenced, you're fighting an uphill battle. If she is the one that influences her friends, your influence over her will self-correct. You probably not have to do the ultimatums as much, but they will test you. They're going to give you a fitness test constantly. They're going to challenge your frame with those, and they'll challenge her. When that doesn't work, the next one is a comfort test. This is, you guys all know this. That's when they cry, throw a fit, and then they want you to comfort and ensure that they're the Chad. You need to recognize the difference in order to correct your approach. And then you have to weigh it against the frame that you've created for yourself and your family. So it's a little bit of a complicated task because we all get tired, we all get weak, and we all know that we're in those relationships like Tom Brady and Giselle. I bet you Giselle knows exactly where to pull that little red switch and expose that button that says punch his emotional button and trigger him. Boom. And girls are good at finding that. And they boom, 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 and press that button, guys, right? So you're gonna have to learn how to protect that again, and just hold frame. And they want you to. They want you to be that solid emotional rock. So we don't know a whole lot about them, but yeah, the girls are going to challenge you. 100%, Phil. They're going to challenge you, especially when you have to set the frame after not having a frame in your relationship for years.
Yeah, that's for 100% for sure. And what if you also have the frame in your relationship and she still continually tests? At what point does that just become a pure liability and you just cut bait and run? There's a lot of guys going from a blue pill condition mindset to a red pill condition mindset that are trying to correct their lives and get things under control. What about the guys that have it under control? They have the assets, they have the job, they have the social status, they have all the things that they need. And men don't need that much, but everything that they've built for themselves.
Well, that's a great question. I actually kind of lean in the direction that doesn't really exist that way. And I'll tell you why.
Let's go.
Because guys that come to the red pill, they actually don't have their frame set first. They try to set the frame of the relationship without having their own frame set. And this is where Wraith really shines with those men, setting that frame first. I see Jimmy. Jimmy, you've been through this, huh? Yeah. So you have to set it here. That's first step. before you, even if you think you're setting it for your relationship, if this isn't here, she's going to challenge, and you're going to get to that point very quickly.
And I'll tell you, and then I'll let Jimmy speak. I'll tell you, you have to go into the relationship with an understanding that's not supposed to be painful.
Right.
Okay. And if it's painful and it's hard work, it's not a relationship. That's you being someone's father. Okay. And it forces you from being dominant to domineering. So you don't want to be domineering. You just want to be dominant. And you know, I am more than able to say, hey, this isn't working for me because you're making me be a person I don't want to be. So you got to go. And that's where you understanding what your boundaries are, what the liabilities or her liabilities are. And like I said, I don't visit a subject any more than 3 times. If there's a 4th time, I'm just saying you're evidently not getting this, and we probably shouldn't be together. It's that simple. And I haven't had any of the women that I've been in long-term relationships haven't got to 4 yet, because they know I'm serious about it.
Ray, do you apply that in all your relationships?
All my relationships.
That's what I thought.
You know, if I'm your friend, if I'm your dad, if I'm your husband, your lover, whatever, I am not going to. It's not going to cause me pain to be with you one way or another. It's not. Either you're going to change, you're going to accept that, or I'm going to walk away. And everybody that's in my life knows that. Doesn't mean I'm an asshole or anything like that. All my kids know I love them. Both my wives knew I loved them, and they knew I was there for them. But the other side of that is, you know, it's not supposed to be painful, and it's not going to be painful.
No, the funny thing about that is you're not an asshole. And if you've held frame for any length of time, at first, if you haven't, and you go in to set a frame in a relationship, they're going to think you're an asshole,
Right.
you know. But you do that first for yourself. It's like walking the talk, right? Then you're not viewed that way at all. It's very respectful. At least in my experience, it has been.
Yeah, and here's it. Every man on this panel right now holds himself to a standard. And it may be a personal standard that you develop. We all hold ourselves to a standard. And it is not too much to ask that standard be respected by the people we bring into our lives. It's not. So, Jimmy, go ahead.
Fantastic.
It's an interesting discussion. I found the red pill in 2017, and I was coming out of a failed relationship, and it was really the perfect time to kind of take an inventory of what I was and my way of being without having to deal with the externality of somebody else. And so that's probably really the most ideal way, I think, to go through that. I think hard mode is being married and being in a relationship that's on the rocks and there's kids involved and that type of thing. And so I took about 6 months to get my head sorted out about what I needed to do in order to change. Part of that was really, you know, reading Rollo's books and kind of understanding the fundamentals of game, and then going out and practicing and just going on, you know, on date after date after date after cold approach. And that kind of transforms who you are over time if you're consistent with it. And then I decided I wanted to look different physically, and I got in the gym and started lifting. Thor, you've been a big part of that. And it just doesn't happen overnight. You know, the other thing I would say that I think a lot of guys that are new to this really underestimate is the impact of being able to take care of things that are traditionally masculine pursuits. So I take care of all of our cars. We have 3 cars. One of the cars that I have is a AMG Mercedes that's a number of years old. And so I do all the maintenance to that vehicle. In fact, this morning I crawled under it and replaced an O2 sensor that had gone bad, that had caused a check engine light. And that's like second nature to me now. You know, it took took longer to jack the car up because I don't have a lift than it did doing the actual work. We had a hot water heater here that the gas control valve went bad. So I ordered one. It was here the next day, drained it, put it in, you know, got it reconnected. And what that does psychologically for my girl is she realizes that no matter what happens, I can take care of it. And so instead of calling another man to do something like that, you just get after it. So over time, those experiences build up and you start to look at yourself differently, and you're able to tackle things that you've never done before. And you're confident that you'll be able to figure it out with the right set of kind of like tools and resources to draw upon. And there's never really any doubt that you can get it done, even if it takes maybe a little bit longer than what you thought. And so those small things are what build that transformation mentally on the inside. Wraith, you were talking about that, that you're not going to turn on a dime and then be able to project that outwards into a relationship with somebody else. And so that's kind of what resonates with me as I'm listening to this discussion.
It's super important, in as far as keeping attraction and frame is being competent in all those little areas. Lauren, I saw you raise your hand. You had some comments you wanted, and then we'll go to Andre and Mark after that.
Yes, to echo what Phil said before, like, what do you do when you have a feminist at home or somebody who espouses the feminist belief? And my spouse worked at Twitter, and Twitter is the wokeistan central. So, like, I remember,
Lauren, did I might have cut out a little bit. Did I? Can you back up? You were talking about what do you do when you're recovering frame and you have a feminist mindset at home?
Yeah, and the idea, and there are two things that helped me, because my wife worked at Twitter, and Twitter is the wokeistan central.
Yeah.
So literally, this is the white heteronormative, toxic, oppressive patriarchy. Like, whoa, chill. It's 7 o'clock, and I just have a coffee. And then gradually, she peeled off. But the idea there, and this is something that I believe that I espouse. Two beliefs that I espouse is like, number one is like, imagine somebody says that and it's a drunken across the bar. You'd be like laughing at it, right? Like, yeah, whatever. And then you can have amused mastery. So like basically, I thought, oh, she's not responding to me, and in a world, whatever I say is noise. So it's like actively distancing myself. And then, okay, you can play with that. The second thing that I espoused was, what if it wasn't fixable? What if there was nothing I could do? For instance, let's say you have a kid or a spouse who's handicapped, like my father was handicapped. There's nothing I can do about it. I can't fix it. And then who would I be then? And this is a shield for your frame, to reclaim the frame. And this is really how it worked. And then over time, it's like bringing a horse gently. And because you're not responding to it, and because you can, like, I would never be like, imagine a drunk across the bar, like, this is a white heteronormative toxic patriarchy. Yeah, sure. Sugar, please. I wouldn't react to it.
You wouldn't react.
And being non-reactive, staying calm, keeping frame, basically. Then it brings competence, confidence, and then, as you mentioned before, like the fitness challenge, like, okay, you're gradually less and less challenged, but it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, and steering the transatlantic ship right into the right direction, that takes a lot of effort. But hey, when you have kids in the mix, you got to do what you got to do.
Yes, and I just want to recap that for everybody. So correct me if I'm wrong, but what you did here in my analysis is you had a lot of feminist mindset that was coming at you in a little bit of a combative way, and you recognize that as a shit test or even a challenge. Sometimes we call it a fitness test, a shit test. And one of the techniques to actually, handle it, well, there's several of them that we all talk about. We'll do a show on this one time too, because I think it's really important that guys understand what it is, because it's been bandied about. It's this, it's that. And it comes from the PUA days when you're doing pickup. But some of the methods to handle these are quite witty and quite competent, ignoring the actual content, that confrontation and moving on to the business of the day is one of the techniques to handle a fitness test coming in. It doesn't work well with a comfort test because they need comfort and they're screaming out for it, but it works really well on a fitness test too. There's others, that you can use as well. And we could talk about that some other time, but is that correct? I mean, you're recognizing it, you're seeing it in your own experience. What was the outcome over time with that? It slowed down, didn't it?
Yeah, no. Well, every now and then, because there's still like some echoes of that past, and every now and then she still has some. I'm like, yeah, and and then she self correct. But those are gone, like gradually gone, gradually. And I mean, when you pass those tests, eventually they're fewer and fewer and fewer. But that never goes away.
Yeah, and you got to be prepared to. There's also another test. I mean, Phil had brought it up. When it is a never-ending battle, there is the nuke. you might have to drop the nuke, and that's laying down the law too. Don't cross this line again. Ray talked about that the third time, or his third strike, and that's an important one to lay out. And if you fail at enforcing that in your relationships, that is extremely difficult to recover from, almost, if not almost impossible amount of effort. Okay, Mark. I know you got something on this thing. You're muted.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I learn a lot here about the frame because that wasn't the word we used back when I was a long time ago. It's important. And I was thinking as I listened to everyone speak that frame for me, what I believe is it stems from how you feel about yourself, like Jimmy, right? The text, that's you, Jimmy, down there. Yeah, okay. We're talking about being able to fix anything in your house. I can do all that stuff. So you feel confident about yourself. You feel capable. To me, it goes back to your self-esteem, your self-worth, your self-value. And someone else mentioned about boundaries, because when you feel a certain way about yourself and you believe in yourself, you're not going to let anybody direct your actions. You're going to keep on point with what you are doing. So frame is actually set without you really having to think about, I need to set the frame. I need to keep the frame. You're centered in yourself and your belief, whether you believe in God or whatever it is you believe in, whether you just believe in yourself, and you have what you want to do, what you need to do. And if it happens to be a woman, you said intimate relationship, she wants to come along for the ride, that's fine. But she's either going to support you or you'll cast her away. Like Wraith was talking about, after a couple of times of this disagreement, she can go, because if it's a lot of work, and I've been in those relationships where you're constantly working, or like you're the father, it just drains the hell out of you. So that's definitely not a asset for you. She becomes a liability because she's not stepping into your frame. And of course, as we all know, we can't make her come into our frame. She has to desire to do that. And if she does, then she's supportive, she encourages you, and she goes along with what you are doing. It's everything in life. It's not just with relationships. I can give you a recent example. I had to go to the school yesterday. My daughter was being picked on by this other girl, whatever. So I went up there to talk to the resource officer. So I walked in the office after they let me in. You have to push the door. You can't just walk in anymore. So, and there's like 6 or 7 women standing there, and the resource officer, but I didn't know that was him. And they all stopped and looked at me, and I just said hello very loudly. And I said, I need to speak to the resource officer. And he walked up to me, and I put my hand out. I said, my name is Mark Daniels. I need to speak to you about this. I said, can we step outside? So I was in their environment, but I immediately set the frame when I walked in the door. Because in those types of environments with that many women at schools, they are used to controlling everything that goes on there. But as I stepped in the door, I took charge of the situation, and I set the frame. And I had my son with me, and I did that as an example to show him how you deal in situations like that. And all my life, when I help guys, I would say, anytime you walk in a place, you walk in there like you own the place. Not in an arrogant sort of way, but it's the way you project yourself, the way you feel about yourself. I've worked out all my life, so I feel good. I do that for me. It's not so much that women will be attracted to it, it's how they're attracted to how I feel about myself, because I know I'm in good shape. I can handle myself in any situation. So I set the frame when I'm in any environment. And if I'm not, then that has nothing to do with the environment, but it has something to do with what's not right within myself. So that's my perception on frame and setting frame.
Oh, that's beautiful. I mean, that's wonderful. It fits right into what I teach all the time with dominant masculine presence. You own the room, but you're not creating an air of dominancy where it's like
Right.
domineering, but you own your space, the space you take in, you take control of it, and yet you have a pleasant character about you that is, and your leadership qualities that draws people to it, and then your frame is set for you because of that. No, it's not combative right off the get-go. It's like, oh, this guy knows what's going on. He's an authority. He has that presence. It's a good thing.
And women
It's a
follow
quiet,
you.
understated confidence. You know, it's
Yeah.
not bravado. It's
Yeah.
not loud. It's not coming out of your mouth. It's how you carry yourself and how you move through the world.
Beautiful. I saw some hands, but I don't know who wanted to. Hit me on the private chat.
I
You
think
wanted to
Andre, go ahead.
I was going to. So one way, I have to say one back to Wraith when dealing with guys who want to eat lead. I agree with what you said and building guys back up. What Phil was talking about earlier is like, how do you get? I think what Phil was talking, how do you get her to buy into the frame? And everything everybody said is 100% correct. If I can't, or if I may, what I'm going to do is just was how do you build out the parallel? So you have trying to set frame or wanting to set frame. Yes, your masculine frame being, and the distinction, Mark, of being alpha and dominant versus domineering. Domineering is very low status. 1,000%, my brother. I love that. One way that I would do it, like in Phil's world, what I would do is say, if I was selling Phil's products, just as a side frame to think about it. Hey, everybody else has niacin and creatine. I have pharmaceutical creatine made in Ohio or in Germany. It's the highest level. The stuff at Walmart and GHC, the product you're talking about, is literally the lowest level. It has rice junk in it. So my question is, do you want the Wagyu? Do you want the best? Do you want the 8 Chad? Do you want the AMG Mercedes effect? Do you want the titanium build F-150 or the Raptor with the 10-speed? Laurent, what I'm talking about is I teach crypto or trading. I forget exactly. I think it's yeah, you can take training from 1,000 guys out there. What's the parallel? I'm the Wagyu. I'm in Tokyo. Wagyu is from here. Why wouldn't you go to the mountain and the base mountain where everything's at? You can go to anybody. It's all over. You can go to the Stop and Go, the 7-Eleven of crypto trading. But if you really want it, I'm from France. The English learned money making from us, from Louis XIV, Louis XV. That's why they talk about that type of furniture. Do you want the Monet or do you want the freaking McDonald's? I'm just saying, do you all buy into my frame right now? There you go.
Somebody else have something on that? I saw a hand.
I buy into your frame, all right. Thank you.
No, that's phenomenal. I love that. It makes me think of last night. So like I just moved to this new area, and so my girl and I are still exploring it. And we went out last night to a couple different bars that I had never been to before, and we were talking to some people, and she shared this with me after the fact because she was talking with another girl about it. Or just talking to another girl, and she had met the other girl mentioned it, and she thought not only that I was older than I was, but that she literally said like he just carries himself with just like this mature presence, which I thought was like it was an interesting thing to hear somebody say and comment on, but it's true. It's walking through places with that quiet confidence. And it's just I don't even know how to explain it. Just the way that you stand, the way that you move through a room, the way that you talk to people, and it just permeates. Like you essentially, when you think about going anywhere, it's almost as acting as if you're the boss of the place. But that domineering is absolutely something to pull away from. But if you move through the place as if you're somebody, people notice it. It's very powerful.
Yes, I agree 100%. You are what you believe you are, and other people see you as you believe you are. Not so much what you are, but as you believe you are in your innermost being. That is what people see. That's why you see guys sometimes who are maybe lacking in the looks department, but they'll be able to pick up beautiful women because they believe in themselves. It's not the outside so much as what people see.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the big deal that I always come up with that My father always said, and he was Odin, and that was, as you think, so shall you become.
Yeah.
Right? That's frame right there. For sure. For sure. All right, guys, we're starting to get closer to an hour. We're an hour and 15 minutes. We got a few more minutes to talk about frame. Let's move to roundtable and give our final thoughts on frame, guys. How about that? Hudge, do you want to tell us a little bit about frame in your life and how you learned to establish frame? And tell us what's going on. Yep.
Sure. Yeah. So I know I just spoke a little bit about that example last night. I don't even know where to begin. It's a journey, and it really, as Mark was saying, it comes from the inside. What people see is how you view yourself. So the very first step to increase, like getting a better frame and having frame in your relationships, is knowing yourself, owning yourself. If you look in the mirror and you don't love what you see, then that's where you need to start. And it doesn't matter if you aren't ripped or you aren't gorgeous or whatever, or you don't have as much money as you would like. It's all about how you view and appreciate yourself. So I think that's really the first starting point. I know I could go down so many personal stories because I've been a victim of this myself, where I was with a pretty girl and I ended up moving her into me and moving in with her and moving to a completely different state. And over time, she kept chipping away at that armor, and that armor being my frame. And it got to the point where everything just burnt to the ground, and it was a waste of my time. It was a waste of her time. It cost me a lot of money. And I wouldn't have been in that position if I am who I am today. But that only comes through talking with men, working with men, like all those on this panel, and identifying those weaknesses that you have, and then fixing them and becoming a better man.
Excellent, Hud. You're right. I mean, it's we got a lot of experiences here. Mentors are a really important part of learning frame. If you guys are struggling with any of this, and I got to say, that's a big part of what's lacking with all of us today, especially our younger generation. I mean, we've got a lot of single mothers out there raising young boys to essentially, be the ideal of the man they did not get. And really, it takes a man to really give an example for a young man on how to be successful in life, how to come out. It's a little tough. And I'll say, the guy hits 18 years old. There's some opportunities. There used to be when you could jump into the military and kind of get trial by fire if you didn't have that in your family and then come out of there. But, there is a burden that each man has to carry. And if you don't carry it, you can eat Cheetos and watch video games in your mom's basement and she'll take care of you. That is not the frame that I'd want to live under, although many choose to do that right now because it's so easy. It's easy to do that. And, if when it comes to women, it's such a challenge. I gotta pass this shit test. I gotta pass that. I gotta do. Oh my God! You know what? I'm just gonna get some porn and sit down here for a minute, and I'll be good. Move on to the next one. Let me scratch my neck beard. All right, let's go. Where's my Call of Duty? Anyway, I shouldn't slam Call of Duty because that's a pretty badass game. But anyway, what was the other one? What's the other one? Fortnite, right? I don't know. I'm just rambling.
Play these days. I can't keep up.
I like Call of Duty. It was kind of cool.
Yeah. Call of Duty, Fortnite, OnlyFans, Cheetos.
OnlyFans. Yeah, that's it. That's the ticket, right? Get frame on OnlyFans. You know who has frame on OnlyFans?
The women.
Yeah.
The men that are running the women.
Ah, there you go. Yeah.
And all the big names have a man running it. That's why men and women are better together. When you team up like that, there's an endless supply of simps because they don't know, they don't want, and many don't want to. So, too comfortable without it. All right, let's keep going. Wraith, final thoughts on frame. Let me put your stuff up here.
I think when I start working with people and I start talking to them about frame, the one thing I would really urge young men to do, and if you're an older man and you haven't done this in your lifetime, set challenges for yourself, because those challenges help you build confidence. All right. And by being competent in something, you build confidence. Way too many people go through life waiting for life to happen to them. You know, when I give lectures and stuff, I throw a couple of things out there, and I'll throw, life isn't about experiences. It's about having experiences that you can experience yourself through. Okay. So create those experiences. Experience what you feel through those experiences. And if that means setting yourself up for, something that you think is bad influence in your life, develop the willpower to stay away from it. Because by developing that willpower and stuff, you're going to start experiencing you. And that's important to frame, because frame is really understanding who you are and how you want that projected and what the boundaries are that you're willing to accept from other people. And set boundaries for yourself too.
Oh, what an excellent point, Wraith. Now, a lot of guys are going to feel a little bit lost. So I don't even know where to start, but I'll just say this. Wraith, you're big on this, and I rarely do it, but when I do it, what a great way to start. You do something called journaling. So if you're finding yourself out there right now where you don't even know how to do frame and you don't know where to start, your first thing on your journal is just write a goal for the day, 1 or 2, and make that one. And Wraith, you could probably say something more about that, because that's a hell of a tool, because then you start to fill that up. And as you make those accomplishments, frame becomes very apparent to you, whereas you might find yourself extremely lost right now. I know you're good.
You want a quick 3 minutes on journaling?
That's what I'm asking for, brother.
Okay. Guys, grab a journal, and 15 minutes before you go to bed, you should be sitting down writing, and just a way to do this with intention. So write 5 things that went great that day and how you can incorporate those successes into your life the next day. Then write a few things, 5 if you've got them, of things that failed that you wish you'd have done better. And then figure out why that didn't work out. And then try to implement that the next day as you repeat that process or a similar process. All right. Put that thing that you find, hey, if I would have done it this way, in place. And then the last thing you do is you sit down and you write 2 or 3 sentences about what you want your life to be. And start understanding that, and start working on those presuppositions in your life so that you can work on the values or reinforce the values that you say you have. That's the easiest way to journal. And then if you want advanced journaling and stuff, hit me up and we'll talk about it. But that gets you started, and you have to do it. 15 minutes every day is all you're asking from yourself to journal. And if you're not worth 15 minutes, you need to talk to someone about how you value yourself.
Excellent. Thank you, Wraith. I appreciate that. That is a tool that is super powerful. And I figure if anybody's watching this is lost on creating frame for yourself in your relationship, go ahead and give that one a try. So let's go ahead and let's move along down the list. Laurent, you got some final thoughts here, brother?
I mean, thank you very much, Wraith. I was thinking, it's funny you mentioned journaling, because I was thinking about 2 techniques. One was journaling, and thank you very much for this. There's also an app called a 5-minute journal. So the format is like gratitude, accomplishment, what would make today great. But the second thing also that I think is an interesting tool, and something that is scheduling your time. So for me, for instance, scheduling has always been a problem. Like I remember I saw people like they write or have an appointment with a dentist in the schedule. Like, oh, dude, this is such magnificent shit you're doing. Meanwhile, I can solve stochastic equations in my head. But the idea of scheduling your time is very important to reclaim frame, because it gives importance to your time. It gives structure. And when you want to accomplish goals, structuring your time, scheduling your time, and this is something now that has become second nature to me. I write down the stuff that is coming to me, put it on a piece of paper, and then schedule my week, schedule my 2 weeks. And then I can always go back at, oh, I accomplished this, I did that. And also, for instance, for the time like, oh, scheduling the gym, scheduling the swimming pool, scheduling this, scheduling learning. or scheduling being with you, gentlemen. And the idea of scheduling gives importance to time. I mean, at least to me, it puts, okay, this is my time, this is my limited life, and I don't have much time or energy to give elsewhere. Does it make any sense?
It does. Thank you. Thank you so much, Laurent. Really appreciate you. Thank you for jumping in here. I know it's late there in Tokyo. Thank you. Mark Daniels,
3:30.
you are up, my friend. What are your final thoughts here?
Well, I have to say I learned from everybody today. I don't know if anybody else got anything out of it, but I sure as hell got a lot
I
out of
love doing this. It's
from what
great.
everybody said. Give me some new ideas. For me, as I said before, frame always manifests from what's going on inside of the person. Um, how you feel about yourself, your confidence, your self-esteem, your self-worth. I think if you don't have, to me, that would be the foundation, because I think we teach people how to treat us. And if we don't feel like we deserve to be treated a certain way, why would we even set a frame or try to hold frame? Because, hey, I'm not valuable anyway, so you can just walk all over me. I experienced similar to what Huds was talking about one time, and it's kind of what brought me to this community. I actually experienced it more than once, but it's easy with the push of today's society to think, well, I'm in this relationship and I got to compromise and let her make decisions and let her have her own way. And when you do that, you're not setting the frame as the leader, and she doesn't want to be the leader. So I believe as a man, you're called to be the leader in everything in your intimate relationships. And I have a business. I have to coordinate everything going on. And if I don't know what to do, I have to act like I know what to do, because I have to get the employees to work here, as you know, Thor. So I have to set the frame there. And if I don't have enough solid confidence in what I'm doing, like Jimmy talked about, he has confidence in what he's doing because he's done it before, then my men are not going to have any confidence in me. And then they're not going to listen to what I have to say. They're not going to want to do it the way that I want it done, which is with excellence. But when they see me doing that, then when I'm not on the job, I don't have to be there all the time. They can finish up a job because they're following my lead, not because they're afraid of getting fired or cutting their pay, but because I've taught them by my example. When it's almost good enough, but we can do it a little better, or just because someone can't see it, we're going to fix it anyway because we know it's there. And that's what I want them to do. So that's the frame I set in my work. And then with my children, it's the same thing. I agree. You don't have to be with them all the time. I'm very fortunate that my kids can work with me. I've got to spend a lot of time with them, but that is not valuable unless you're showing by example what a man is supposed to do and how he's supposed to set the frame for those around him as a leader. And kids will test your frame. They will test the boundaries, and you have to stand up to that. And that's exactly what they want you to do. And then when you do that, they learn from you to stand up for their boundaries and to control and set their frame and stand up for it and not allow people to walk on them. They're not doormats. None of us are. So we have to have our own standards, and to have a hell of a high standard, which I do for myself and everybody that's around me, is just what I choose to do. And I think Ray talked about it. As I said, if you don't want to adhere to my standard, that's fine. I understand it. It's hard for me to adhere to it. But if you don't want to, don't try to fight to bring me down. You can just go on your way, or I don't really want to have anything to do with you. So you have to get those people out of your lives. That's my take on it.
No, I appreciate that. That's fantastic, Mark. You're always welcome here. We sure like having you on board.
It's my pleasure.
What a great panel, man. Phil, what is your take on this whole topic, man? We got more to come because we are going to talk about frame in business and friendship relationships next. This is all about relationship.
Yeah.
But it is a rather big topic that's very misunderstood. And I like the way everybody kind of comes together, converses about this, and learns from each other. What are your thoughts on this?
First off, what a great panel, man. I've learned a lot of things, Good thing I didn't have to follow Wraith up today, man. That dude's always got golden nuggets like flowing from the speakers, man. But I will tell you, when it comes to frame, there's been a lot of good ideas that have been put out here today on this topic, with the journaling and everything else and discovering. But, the big thing is you set the standard, gentlemen, no matter what in your life. And so Wraith was, on point with that journaling topic and that idea and how to go about navigating that. if you don't have any standards for yourself, I mean, how can anyone else have standards for you? How can you set boundaries? So the big thing is understanding first and foremost that you, gentlemen, if you're watching this and you're just starting out, you need to figure out what your worth is and understand that you are worth a whole lot more than you're giving yourself credit for, first and foremost. And if you're putting up with things from people in your life, for me, Wraith is generous. The three option is really generous. It's normally like 2 times and I'm done, for me, on the second time around. I don't know how many dudes I've removed from my life and my social circle for the simple fact is that, they just weren't congruent with what I was trying to do for myself. And when it comes to relationships and women, I love women, but here's the thing. If you have a woman in your life that can't follow your lead, okay, and you are ticking all the boxes as far as being a solid gent and handling your business, that's why I keep circling back on this from earlier in the stream. If you have a woman that just can't get with the program, then the nuclear option might be that option. And that's a tough decision to make, especially if you have time invested, kids and everything like that. And Wraith made a valid point. I can't articulate the way he said it, but he said something about how'd you say that? A relationship shouldn't be painful. Is that what you said? Is that how you said it, Wraith?
Yeah, that's what I said. It shouldn't be painful and it shouldn't be hard.
It shouldn't be painful and it shouldn't be hard. So if you're beating your head against the wall and you're ticking all the boxes, gents, then sometimes it's better to cut bait and move on. How many men right now that might potentially watch the stream they're scratching their head, they've read the books, they've had mentors, they've tried to figure these things out and they don't understand why? Well, not everybody in this world is, we aren't without flaw. Okay, so the point is this: if you are trying to build something and you are being a man and you're being intentional with the way you're living your life and you're doing the things appropriately and you're not being domineering, maybe that's just a flawed situation. And so I encourage you to have the courage to not be afraid of that nuclear button. Okay, so when you're developing frame and you've ticked all these boxes, if it's still unsalvageable, if you're still miserable, if it's still hard, like what Wraith was talking about, if it's still painful, and you've got so many years in, it's time to start thinking about yourself first. And so that's the big thing, right? When it comes to frame, is you put you above everything else in your life first and foremost. And I believe that if you are doing things with intention and you are doing things with integrity and you are being a man and ticking these boxes, the good will flow to you and the bad will just have to be removed. And that's what I got on frame and relationships.
Thank you, Phil. That's so well spoken. The nuclear option, gentlemen, is laying down the law and adhering to it. That's what it is. It has to always be present. If you're going to succeed in the relationship, there are boundaries you don't cross. And with children, those boundaries tend to get blurred by the blue pill. Oh, I got to stick it out. I got to do this. Look, make your best effort. But really, if you can't live in your frame and have the relationship in your frame, you move your frame. I mean, the children are actually better off. I'm telling you, it is not the other way around. She needs to be in your frame. And if it's got that far, you got a lot of serious thinking to do. You should always have the walk away, see ya on the back burner.
I think that's the hardest thing for people to be able to do.
Sure.
To be able to nuke. And I don't know, we could even talk about that at some point. But I know for myself, that's why it took so long when I did that move with that girl and I was in that relationship, because there's time invested and like she may be attractive, this, that, the third. But you really got to think about your future. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your life.
That is difficult. And this is one of the big things when I do the counseling sessions or consulting sessions with the guys is whatever you decide to do, because it's ultimately your choice, you must have a solid escape plan and it has to be enactable, or nothing else that I can give you over time can help you. That's the teeth that makes it work.
Hey, real quick to tee off of HUDs before we move on. Men will sacrifice everything for their kids and their life, man, and their happiness. You know what I mean? They'll sacrifice their happiness. They will live a completely miserable life because they don't want to get, gutted in the courts. They want to see their children if they got kids involved. Men will sacrifice literally everything, including who they are as men, to make something work. And that's precisely why it doesn't.
Yeah, it's a spiral to death of the inner man.
Yep.
You've got to be willing to walk away from the kids and the wife and everything.
That is so true. And it's counterintuitive, actually, but that's what you have to do if you want to bring it back around and you actually find yourself in a spot where it's started to spin laterally on you, and you're getting these blue pill impulses, and you're getting feminism and social constructionism, and girlfriends starting, especially if your girl has single girlfriends, that should be eliminated immediately. And before you ever get there, right? Pick them for her. Guys, it's chess. This is chess. It's not checkers. If you know what you're doing, you get into these long-term relationships, you can select her friends without her knowing, and she'll be happy to do it. It'll be great. Anyways, that's the secret sauce. If you want that stuff, you're going to have to join Thor's monthly DragonShip for that stuff, because it isn't coming on here or they will ban us immediately, but you might find it on Rumble. All right, let's get to the next guy. We're going to get to Texas Chad. Hey, thanks for joining us, Jimmy. It's always a pleasure having you here, because you know what? Your beard is badass.
Thanks, man. It's good to be here. This is what I would say to guys that are at the beginning of this journey. I'm trying to think back to when I started down this path. And the thing that I think makes the most sense to say is that you got to start with yourself. And so you got to take control of even the smallest things that you can control in your life. If you look at your life and it's out of control, that includes getting out of your bed and making it in the morning. It includes how you keep your place. It includes, getting to bed at a reasonable time and keeping some kind of schedule. And it's really about keeping promises to yourself, setting a standard and adhering to the standard. And it starts as a very small circle, in the center of your life. And as you get more disciplined and you become more effective at holding that standard, then it can actually ripple outward to start to include people around you. And that's how you make the transition from starting down that red pill path and then eventually influencing the relationships around you. And so it starts that ring of, influence starts small, because you've got to take it on yourself and demonstrate to yourself that you can adhere to that discipline and set and keep that standard, and then it'll ripple outward.
Excellent. That's fantastic. And we will move right into Andre. Your final thoughts here, buddy.
Yeah, this is real wide goo today, guys. Everybody that's watching this, this is really great stuff. This is the thing that I love and I'm into, and I know everybody else here Thor, and this is one of the reasons why Thor actually began this. If you guys are not part of the DragonShip, if you're watching this on YouTube or whatever social media this gets distributed out, join the DragonShip without question, doubt, or hesitation. If you want real meat, you want the best, or you want an aged steak, you want the best supplements, if you want to learn about the best crypto, well, today it was about framing, and framing is everything. I love this stuff. Framing literally is everything. Everything in life falls under framing. And today was an incredible show, and I can't wait for the next one. And I will say this, the thing on what we didn't touch on is briefly, is that when we lose frame with a woman and we're afraid, and when Thor said it and Phil said is being able to walk away, and Mark did too, walking away from a woman, so did Ray, is your ability to, the reason why we're afraid to pull back and step away is because we're in a scarcity mindset. We actually step in that if we're not willing to set the frame, even to try it out or experiment with it. And that's the juice. The juice is to set the frame and step into that abundance as a guy. The tree of life. You are what part of you of the yin and yang are you? Well, you're the Frank and beans, baby. You are the white goo. You are offering the white goo. You don't want my white goo, you can leave. There's a McDonald's down the street. You want fast food, go for it. You want your diabetes, you all want all the nonsense, you go for it. I'm going to have a 7-course meal with my buddies and my guys. They're going to bring their wives or their women in, and we're going to have a great meal. 7 courses, baby. And the meat of it is going to be a Wagyu steak. How much more of that experience do you want? That's why you have to join the Dragon Ship.
Thanks, brother.
Andre out.
Thanks, guys. I'll give you my final words here. I love the show, love the panel. I want to leave you guys with some tips, and I encourage you to come and join Thor's Dragon Ship monthly membership. It's reasonable. It's $50 a month. Second Tuesdays of the month, we have a 3-hour meeting. It is very interactive. This is the kind of thing that's instructional, but it involves also your discipline and the fact that you're going to learn by interacting. So as far as today's topic, I'm just going to actually read a couple of the laws of power because they fit so well. And then I'll go ahead and close this out. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the 48 laws of power, but some of the wisdom that is broadcast in there to wield power in your own life and abroad is amazing. So here's where you start. If you're starting out on this journey, money, muscles, game, and frame, in order to achieve that, start with this. Start by creating your own identity, okay? And then concentrate your forces, act with boldness, and then introduce change gradually, okay? And win both hearts and minds. This is the finesse part, guys. And that's awesome. I think those are some of the best lessons. And then the final one, when you're going through all of this and interacting with folks, is always say less than is necessary. That'll introduce that mystery that keeps that frame credible. So with that, guys, I'll bring everybody back up for a final thought, and we'll say goodbye. Guys, thank you so much. Remember, the Dragon Ship is pretty awesome. It's a harbor where a rising tide lifts all boats. This is our show. It's our conversation. It's a panel show about all men taking small actions over time and gaining massive results. Welcome aboard, and we'll see you guys next time. Skull.